As you settle into the gentle cradle of this evening, letting the weight of the day dissolve like mist rising from a tranquil stream, allow your mind to drift toward a quiet curiosity, one that stirs not with haste but with the soft insistence of water tracing its inevitable path. Picture, if you will, a faint ripple spreading across a distant pool, not urgent or commanding, but soothing, like the first drops of rain kissing a quiet meadow, inviting you to explore the tender wonders that flow across the earth we tread so lightly upon. In this shared moment of repose, where thoughts wander freely like leaves caught in a serene current, we embark on a journey through the heart of waterfalls, not as mere spectacles of sound and spray, but as the Eartha TM's ancient artisans, sculptors of stone and singers of renewal, whispering secrets of persistence and grace. If this unfolding tale of liquid rhythms resonates within you, perhaps linger with us, subscribing to these nocturnal explorations that guide the mind toward peaceful slumber, carried on the gentle pulse of Waterfall TM's timeless song. For waterfalls, these silken veils of the planeta TM's breath are more than fleeting cascades. They are the Eartha TM's poetry, etched in fluid lines across cliffs and canyons, their ceaseless motion a reminder that even in surrender, there is strength, shaping landscapes and lives with a patience that mirrors the quiet resolve within your own heart, fostering balance and beauty through every measured drop. And so we begin with these liquid sculptors, whose forms and flows weave a story as timeless as the rivers themselves. These architects of mist and thunder emerge not in isolation but as outcomes of a grand, interconnected choreography, where rivers, born from the sky's generous tears, carve their ways across landscapes, seeking always the sea yet pausing at precipices to perform their timeless rites. Consider first the Plunge waterfalls, those bold, unyielding leaps where the river hurls itself entire over a sheer face of rock, plummeting straight into a churning pool below, as if the water, in a surge of liberated joy, has decided to embrace the void all at once. No falls, that thunderous veil straddling borders, stands as such a sentinel, over 50 meters of unbroken drop, where billions of gallons cascade yearly, eroding the limestone lip at a rate of mere centimeters, yet compounding over millennia into a gorge 10 kilometers long. TM's a reassuring sight, this relentless yet measured work, akin to the steady drip of a faucet wearing smooth as sinker TM's edge over years, reminding us that grand transformations often stem from the simplest, most faithful repetitions. And in the Plunge TM's purity, Teresa TM's a philosophical gentleness, the water does not cling or hesitate, but surrenders fully, emerging renewed in the froth, much like the way you might release a long-held worry into the night. TM's quiet, finding clarity in the letting go. Pause with that image now, breathing in the imagined chill of spray rising like a bridal mist, cool against your skin, then exhaling slowly, feeling the echo of that drop resonate within, a soft thrum that aligns your pulse with the planet's unhurried cadence. From such dramatic plunges, the Earth's watery artisans branch into cascades, those tiered descents where the flow stumbles over a series of ledges, like a storyteller pausing at chapter's end to build suspense, each step a vignette of controlled abandon. Imagine the Multnomah Falls in Oregon's verdant gorge, its waters tumbling in two distinct vales over basalt cliffs formed from ancient lava flows. Ironic how fire's legacy now cradles water's grace, splashing across mossy outcrops before pooling and recommencing the journey. These cascades form through differential erosion, where softer rock layers dissolve beneath harder caps, undercutting the stone until it fractures and retreats, a process as patient as the slow unraveling of a tightly wound scarf in warm hands. Reassuringly, this is no violent overthrow, but a collaborative dance, the river whispering to the rock, "Yield a little here, and we shall both find new shape," fostering not just the fall but the lush hanging gardens that thrive in the perpetual damp, ferns unfurling like secrets shared in the shade. And as that subterranean fire seeks the surface in whispers of light, so does the earth's other breath, its gathered waters, approach thresholds of their own, swelling in patient veins towards silken descents, where persistence carves not with flame, but with fluid grace, inviting you, in this quiet hour, to let your awareness drift with the current, feeling the reassuring continuity of creation's dual rhythms, fire and flow entwined in the planet's patient artistry, much like the inner warmth and gentle release that balance your own evenings, turning day's embers into night's serene stream. These architects of mist and thunder emerge not in isolation, but as outcomes of a grand, interconnected choreography, where rivers, born from the sky's generous tears, carve their ways across landscapes, seeking always the sea yet pausing at precipices to perform their timeless rites. Consider first the Plunge waterfalls, those bold, unyielding leaps where the river hurls itself entire over a sheer face of rock, plummeting straight into a churning pool below, as if the water, in a surge of liberated joy, has decided to embrace the void all at once. Ne'er Falls, the thunderous veil straddling borders, stands as such a sentinel, over 50 meters of unbroken drop, where billions of gallons cascade yearly, eroding the limestone lip at a rate of mere centimeters, yet compounding over millennia into a gorge 10 kilometers long. It's a reassuring sight, this relentless yet measured work, akin to the steady drip of a faucet wearing smoother sink's edge over years, reminding us that grand transformations often stem from the simplest, most faithful repetitions. And in the plunge's purity, there's a philosophical gentleness. The water does not cling or hesitate, but surrenders fully, emerging renewed in the froth, much like the way you might release a long-held worry into the night's quiet, finding clarity in the letting go. Pause with that image now, breathing in the imagined chill of spray rising like a bridal mist, cool against your skin, then exhaling slowly, feeling the echo of that drop resonate within, a soft thrum that aligns your pulse with the planet's unhurried cadence. From such dramatic plunges, the Earth's watery artisans branch into cascades, those tiered descents where the flow stumbles over a series of ledges, like a storyteller pausing at chapter's end to build suspense, each step a vignette of controlled abandon. Imagine the Motnong Falls in Oregon's verdant gorge, its waters tumbling in two distinct vales over basalt cliffs formed from ancient lava flows. Ironic how fire's legacy now cradles water's grace, splashing across mossy outcrops before pooling and recommencing the journey. These cascades form through differential erosion, where softer rock layers dissolve beneath harder caps, undercutting the stone until it fractures and retreats, a process as patient as the slow unraveling of a tightly wound scarf in warm hands. Reassuringly, this is no violent overthrow, but a collaborative dance, the river whispering to the rock, "Yield a little here, and we shall both find new shape," fostering not just the fall but the lush hanging gardens that thrive in the perpetual damp, ferns unfurling like secrets shared in the shade. In these forms, we see the ripple effects of broader forces at play, the way glacial retreats from ice ages leave behind U-shaped valleys, their hanging tributaries plunging as secondary falls when rivers meet the main channel's undercut path. Or consider the fan waterfalls, those ethereal spreads where the stream fans out like fingers splayed in benediction, veiling a broad cliff face in a translucent sheet, as at the ethereal's Hul Loon in Scotland, the highest in the British Isles, its waters diffusing into a haze that catches rainbows on misty days. Such fans arise in zones of fractured rock, where joints and fissures allow the flow to splinter and reconnect, a metaphor for our own lives' branching paths, moments where one stream divides into many, each droplet carrying the whole's essence, only to merge again in the basin below. What wonder lies in this diffusion, this temporary multiplicity, evoking the scattered thoughts of evening that gather back into dreams, whole and harmonious once more. Yet let us linger a while on the mechanics of their building, these liquid sculptures rising from the interplay of hydrology and geology, where rivers, fed by watersheds vast as forgotten kingdoms, incise their beds through uplift, and subsidence. In regions of tectonic unrest, like the Himalayas where India collides with Asia, rivers like the Ganges carve gorges that birth falls such as the Bhaksu near Renewal. Their plunges a counterpoint to the mountain's upward thrust, as if water says, "And I shall descend to balance your rise." Everyday examples abound to make this accessible. Think of a garden hose arcing over a low wall, eroding the soil beneath with each pass, or the way rainwater channels deepen cracks in a driveway over seasons, widening them into rivulets. So too do waterfalls evolve, their lips retreating upstream through headward erosion, nick points migrating like wandering minstrels, leaving behind potholes scoured by tumbling pebbles, nature's own tumble dryers, polishing stones to river gems. Gently clarified, a nick point is simply that point of abrupt change in a river's profile, where the fall resides, migrating at rates from centimeters to meters per year, depending on the rock's resistance and the water's vigor, a slow procession that reshapes valleys into amphitheaters of green. Episodically, then, these vignettes interconnect: a river's youthful vigor, straight and steep from recent uplift, favors plunging forms, while maturity brings meanders and cascades, the flow braiding over softer sediments. In karst landscapes, like the travertine terraces of Croatia's Puts lakes, water dissolves limestone to form tiered pools, each a shallow basin overflowing into the next, a staircase of azure mirrors where the fall is less a drop than a series of intimate sighs. Here, the chemistry whispers into the form, calcium carbonate precipitating in the aerated flow, building natural dams that deepen the pools, a cycle of dissolution and deposition as balanced as the breath you draw now, in and out. Each exchange acquired alchemy sustaining the whole. Subtle irony touches this. What begins as erosion's bite ends in accretion's gift. The falls not destroyers but creators, layering stone upon stone in travertine veils that endure for ages, much like the incremental kindnesses in a life that build unseen foundations of strength. As we trace these building tales, consider the Horsetail Falls, those slender threads where the water clings to the rock face, sliding down in a translucent sheath rather than leaping free, as at Yosemite's ethereal namesake, where in February's rare alignment, it glows like firefall from a setting sun. Such forms grace overhanging cliffs of granite, weathered smooth by the very water that caresses them, a partnership of adhesion and gravity where surface tension holds the flow close, like a secret shared between old friends. Vividly, sense the cool silk of it against an imagined palm, the faint tremor of volume pressing downward, yet the rock's curve guiding it gently, preventing the break into chaos. This adhesion speaks to a deeper reassurance, the way some descents in our journeys hug the familiar, descending not in isolation but in intimate contact, emerging at the base not scattered but gathered, ready for the next bend. Repetition reinforces the wonder here, whether plunge or fan, cascade or horsetail, each type echoes the same patient artistry, the river's dialogue with stone-yielding forms that both reveal and conceal the earth's inner workings. In the block Waterfalls, where a wall of resistant rock dams the flow into a broad, even sheet, like Guyana's Kaiator, remote and roaring, the uniformity arises from horizontal strata, the water backing up into a lake before spilling uniform, a serene counter to the plunge's wild abandon. Or the Punchbowl Falls, tiered chutes ending in deep, swirling basins that aerate the water to oxygen-rich purity, vital for downstream life, their scouring action carving amphitheaters where echoes multiply the rumble into a symphony. Everyday relatability draws us closer, the way a backyard stream over a log steps down in mini cascades, or the shower spray fanning across tiled ledges, each a microcosm of the grander designs, inviting you to recall such simple flows in your own surroundings, where water's whisper has always been a companion to reflection. Let these forms settle like dew on dawn leaves, each a breath in the earth's watery verse, allowing a moment's hush to absorb their quiet multiplicity, the river's patient palette painting possibility from persistence alone. Philosophically inclined, these architects invite us to ponder the empowerment in persistence, the softest element conquering the hardest, not through force but through faithful return, day after day, season upon season, inviting you to trust your own persistent flows through uncertainty's stone. What falls, after all, do not merely fall, they rise first, evaporated from oceans, condensed in clouds, precipitated as rain, a cycle as uplifting as it is inevitable, mirroring the renewals in your spirit after moments of descent. A light, observational touch, even in their thunder, waterfalls hush the world around them, drawing birds to bathe and moss to cloak the rocks in velvet, a serene oasis amid the rush. And as these forms take shape through eons of such interplay, rivers capturing tributaries, glaciers gouging basins, faults fracturing faces, the landscape transforms, valleys deepening, canyons yawning, yet always with an underlying grace, the water's path a map of accommodation and adaptation. Let that map unfold a little further in your mind's eye, tracing the interconnected threads, a fault line full like Iceland's Svartafoss, framed by hexagonal basalt columns, where tectonic cracks channel the meltwater's leap, or a seasonal whisperer like Japan's Nochi Falls, sacred and evergreen, its flow swelling with typhoon rains to feed ancient cedars. Each a standalone vignette, yet linked in the watershed's web, where upstream rains dictate the volume, downstream pools the reception, and the fall itself the pivotal song. Gently, a rhetorical musing. Have you ever stood, or imagined standing, beneath such a veil, the mist beading on lashes like tears of joy, the roar fading to a white hush in the ears, leaving only the heart's quiet knowing? Such immersion fosters peaceful discovery, the falls not distant phenomena but extensions of the flow within, empowering us to embrace our own cascades with wonder. Building rhythm now with shorter bursts of insight, plunge forms dominate in hard, uniform rock, cascades in layered softness. Fans favor porous faces, horsetails, the smooth overhangs. Lock walls demand even strata, punch bowls, the abrasive swirl. Sense the hush in that variety, the river choosing its voice with unhurried wisdom. Yet all share the core, water's weight, about 1,000 times that of air, pressing inexorably, eroding at rates from a hair's breadth to a handspan yearly, depending on quartz content and flow force. Reassuringly simple, this, velocity squared times density, the physics of persistence, yet poetic in application, turning cliffs to sand, sand to silt, silt to fertile plain. Transitioning between these, the narrative of a single fall's life, born in uplift's fresh steepness, maturing through retreat, perhaps captured by a neighboring stream in river piracy, its flow hijacked to new depths, a subtle shift that redraws maps over millennia. In this slow sculpting, everyday examples bloom like wildflowers along the path, the rain gutter overflowing a sloped roof in stepped sheets, or the bathtub drains vortex mimicking a punch bowl's whirl. Such parallels draw the listener in, conversational and inclusive, reminding you of baths drawn on weary evenings, the water's retreat a mini fall that clears the vessel for renewal. And herein lies the emotional uplift. These waterfalls, in their diverse architectures, affirm the world's quiet genius for balance, destruction veiled as creation, descent as a gateway to depth, inviting you to trust your own persistent flows through uncertainty's stone. Feel the serenity of it settle, perhaps, as a guided affirmation. With each imagined drop, release a fragment of the day's weight, letting it tumble into the pool of forgotten cares, emerging lighter, more attuned to the wonder. As we near the crest of these explorations, envision the collective hush after a fact's gentle landing, the way a cascade's multiple voices layer into harmony, or a plunge's single note sustains like a held breath. Interconnected, always, the type informs the ecosystem. Plunge pools teeming with trout in aerated depths, cascade ledges cradling orchids in spray-nurtured niches. A gentle philosophical close to this segment, in their building, waterfalls teach the art of elegant inevitability, the river not raging against the stone but flowing with it, eroding just enough to reveal the gem beneath, much as introspection polishes the soul. Subtle repetition seals the insight, persistent, patient, poetic. These are the hallmarks of watery craft, echoing the reassurances we've carried from the depths. Yet even as these forms hold their breath at the lip, poised in crystalline tension, the water yearns to sing its full measure, to unfurl not just in shape but in motion, where the true symphony of descent begins to stir, a cascade of sound and sparkle that reshapes not only stone but the very air it kisses, inviting you, in this quiet hour, to lean into the rhythm of that release, feeling it echo the gentle unspooling of your own evening thoughts into the vast, welcoming night. In this unfolding, the waterfall reveals itself not as a static veil, but as a living aria, each droplet a note in an eternal composition, conducted by gravity's invisible hand, where the plunge becomes a dance of liberation, reassuring in its inevitability, a reminder that every held breath finds its exhale, every gathered force its graceful expenditure, much like the way a deep sigh at the twilight carries away the remnants of tension, leaving space for serenity's soft arrival. As the river crests the edge, surrendering to the pool that has whispered from the heights, the motion ignites in a fluid cascade, the water accelerating from a languid meander to a swift, arrow-straight arrow toward the depths below, gathering speed under gravity's steady embrace, about 9.8 meters per second squared, a constant as comforting as the Earth's own reliable tilt. Picture it unfolding in slow reverence, the leading edge shears free first, tumbling end over end in parabolic arcs, while the trailing flow sheets out behind, a translucent banner rippling in the wind's subtle caress, the whole forming a churning prism where sunlight, or moonlight, in your imagined vigil, fractures into fleeting jewels of color. This is the heart of the plunge's poetry, the way velocity builds not in frenzy but in harmonious acceleration, droplets merging and parting like performers in a troupe, their collective weight, often thousands of tons per minute in grander falls, translating potential energy into kinetic grace, eroding the lip incrementally, millimeter by millimeter, over the patient span of centuries. Reassuringly, this is no reckless hurtle but a measured ballet, the water cushioning its own fall through surface tension's web, emerging at the base not shattered but revitalized, foaming into a cauldron that breathes oxygen back into the river's lifeblood. Pause here, if the notion appeals, and let your breath mimic that descent, in through the calm reservoir of your lungs, holding just a moment at the crest, then out in a slow, cascading release, feeling the imagined spray settle like a cool benediction on your brow. Such mechanics, gently clarified, draw from the simplest truths. The steeper the drop, the swifter the surge, with velocities reaching 30 meters per second or more in free falls over 100 meters, yet always tempered by the air's resistance, which fans the flow into mist at the margins, a hazy halo that softens the edges, evoking the way fog rolls in from a distant sea to blanket a coastline in whispered peace. In Plunge falls like Victoria's thunderous curtain, wider than 2 football fields, plunging over 100 meters into a narrow gorge. The motion manifests as a solid-seeming sheet that hollows into a barrel at the center, where pressure builds and releases in undulating waves, a rhythmic pulse you might sense as a distant hum, aligning with the subtle throb of your resting heart. What wonder stirs in this? The transformation of stored height into surging flow, mirroring those inner surges within yourself, where pent-up energy finds outlet not in storm but in steady, empowering stream. Transitioning through these plumes of spray, where the air thickens with vapor and the scent of wet stone rises like an earthy incense, the symphony extends its reach into the realm of sound, that resonant thunder which announces the fall's arrival long before sight confirms it. Born from the collision of mass against surface, the raw cascades in layers, the deep bass of the main impact, vibrating through rock and water alike, a subsonic tremor that travels kilometers downstream, then the higher whispers of splashing droplets, a percussive patter like rain on leaves amplified to orchestral scale. At Iguazu's Devil's Throat, where over 100 chutes converge, this auditory tapestry swells to rival a storm's fury, yet holds a contemplative core, the constant white noise that drowns out worldly clamor, fostering a meditative hush within the din, much as the steady drone of a fan on a sleepless night invites the mind to wander untethered. Everyday echoes make it relatable, the gurgle of a faucet unleashed full bore, or the rush of a summer shower against a window pane, each a miniature prelude to the grander chorus, reminding you of baths where the tap's pour becomes a private symphony, washing concerns into the drain with soothing inevitability. Episodically, this sonic bloom interconnects with the visual splendor, the motion-stirring vortices and eddies at the base that sculpt the plunge pool into a deepening amphitheater, walls polished smooth by the ceaseless abrasion of suspended grit, sand and pebbles tumbling like prayer beads in a rosary of renewal. In shorter bursts for clarity, the initial impact excavates, scouring basins up to 30 meters deep. Hydraulic jumps form standing waves upstream, where the flow rebounds in frothy rebellion before subsiding, and boil zones churn with recirculating currents, trapping debris in lazy spirals that aerate and cleanse. Such dynamics, reassuring in their self-regulating poise, ensure the fall's longevity, the pool's depth cushioning future plunges, preventing undercutting collapse, a natural engineering as elegant as the arch of a bridge spanning a quiet stream. Subtle irony graces the tale. What sounds like chaos is precision's veil, the raw masking the delicate balance where energy dissipates not in waste but in wave after wave of harmonious dissipation, much like the evening's bustle fading into the layered silences of home. And as this motion kisses the air, birthing mist that veils the scene in diaphanous grace, the sensory chorus deepens with touch and taste, the cool kiss of spray beading on skin like morning dew, carrying minerals from the rock's slow dissolution, a faint tang of calcium or silica on the tongue if one were to lean close, evoking the crisp bite of spring water straight from a mountain source. In Fan Falls, where the sheet thins to a gauzy drape, the mist diffuses widely, nourishing bromeliads and lichens on sheer faces, a riparian fog that sustains micro-worlds in perpetual twilight, droplets coalescing into rivulets that trace fern-fringed paths downward. Feel that interconnected ripple, perhaps, in your own recollections of misty mornings, the air heavy with promise, or the gentle patter of a sprinkler on a garden's edge, each evoking the waterfall's gift of hydration, not just to stone but to the very breath of life around it. Rhetorically, does it not stir a quiet insight? This way the descent democratizes its energy, scattering refreshment far beyond the plunge, affirming that true release touches all in its radius, empowering the ecosystem with unassuming bounty. Building rhythm now with repetitive affirmations of flow's fluidity, the water bends but does not break, accelerates yet remains whole, impacts and rebounds in eternal cycle. In Horsetail Falls, the clinging descent minimizes splash, the motion a sleek glide that hisses softly against the rock, generating less thunder but more intimate whispers, ideal for the contemplative soul seeking solace in subtlety, like the trickle of a countertop fountain in a hushed room, its murmur a companion to reading by lamplight. Conversely, in punch bowl configurations, the concentrated jet hammers into the basin, excavating undercut caves where echoes multiply the sound into cavernous song, the motion's force carving alcoves that shelter nesting swallows, their flights darting through the perpetual rainbow arcing from refracted spray. Gently philosophical, this interplay of force and finesse teaches the beauty and varied velocities, the way a single river can whisper in one bend and proclaim in the next, echoing the modulations in your days, moments of bold expression balanced by tender retreats, each contributing to the soul's deeper current. Let us linger on the erosive embrace, the tender abrasion where motion meets matter, the water armed with its cargo of quartz grains acting as nature's sandpaper, polishing basalt to glass smooth sheen or gouging softer shales into undulant flutes. Over time, this sculpting retreats the brink at rates from a fingertip's length annually in vigorous flows to the lazy pace of a growing nail in subdued ones, nick points marching upstream like explorers claiming new territory, leaving behind meanders and rapids in their wake. An everyday analogy unfolds. Consider the way a stream in your local park hollows a clay bank after heavy rains, pebbles rattling in the shallows like dice in a velvet pouch, each tumble etching finer details into the bed. So too does the waterfall's kinetic kiss refine the gorge, widening it into a verdant slot where vines cascade in mimicry, the motion's legacy a habitat mosaic teeming with otters slipping through undercut ledges and kingfishers perching on spray-polished perches. Uplifting, isn't it? How this ceaseless work fosters diversity, the plunge's power not diminishing but amplifying life, a serene assurance that even the mightiest descents nurture fragility in their fold. Interwoven vignettes reveal the broader implications in seasonal falls, like those in Yellowstone's geysers fed chutes. The motion swells with snowmelt's largesse, peaking in spring's exuberance before tapering to silver threads in autumn's hush, a cycle that mirrors the ebb and flow of your own energies, inviting reflection on renewal's rhythm. Or in tidal-influenced estuaries, where brackish plumes mingle salt and sweet, the fall's motion pulses with lunar tug, tides backing the flow into temporary lakes that burst forth at low water, a tidal aria as rhythmic as ocean waves lapping ashore. Sensory details bloom vividly, the ozone-sharp scent of ionized air from the turbulence, the faint prickle of static on hair from friction's spark, the cool updraft rising from the boil that lifts skirts or ruffles leaves in a gentle zephyr. Guided now, if you wish, to an affirmation, close your eyes softly, envision the mist enveloping you like a familiar shawl, its chill a counterpoint to inner warmth, each droplet a whispered permission to let go, to flow. As denser concepts settle, the Bernoulli principle lifting mist in low-pressure zones, or cavitation bubbles imploding with microscopic force against the rock, allow pauses for their absorption, the narrative breathing with you, in, out. The science not a barrier but a bridge to deeper awe. Shorter bursts illuminate, turbulence generates heat, warming the pool by fractions of a degree, entrained air lightens the flow, allowing leaps over obstacles, and the standing wave's crest, a frozen moment of surge, hosts foam nests for caddisfly larvae, nature's engineers in miniature. Subtle observational touch, even in their most boisterous displays, waterfalls hush the senses selectively, the raw blanketing bird calls while amplifying the intimate splash of a single stone skipped across the surface, a selective serenity that invites the wanderer to listen inward. Repetition underscores the empowerment, motion not as mayhem, but as medicine, the fall aerating waters for salmon runs, oxygenating soils for root delving, misting canopies for epiphyte embrace, each ripple a thread in the web of sustenance. Philosophically attuned, this symphony whispers of surrender's strength, the water yielding to gravity yet dictating its path through volume and vigor, a lesson in empowered descent where the plunge purifies, stripping away the river's silt-laden burdens to emerge crystalline below. Have you felt, in quieter falls like the silver strands of Iceland's countless rills, the delicate hush where motion is more sigh than shout, the droplets pattering like footsteps on moss, each a step toward the sea's vast acceptance? Such immersions foster quiet insight, the fall's kinetic kiss a metaphor for life's necessary drops, moments that propel us forward, scouring away the extraneous to reveal the essential flow beneath. And in this dance of descent and rebound, the interconnected wonder shines. Upstream rains dictate the tempo, downstream meadows drink the bounty, while the fall itself, in its eternal aria, binds sky to soil in liquid song. Yet as the symphony crests in this vibrant motion, its notes lingering in the air's damp hush and the stone's subtle quiver, the energy does not vanish but transforms, seeping into the surrounding hush where the waters pool and part, gathering not just depth but the seeds of what follows, the slow infusion of life into the scoured basin, where endings in splash prelude the gentle stirrings of growth along the softened shores. Yet as the symphony crests in this vibrant motion, its notes lingering in the air's damp hush and the stone's subtle quiver, the energy does not vanish but transforms, seeping into the surrounding hush where the waters pool and part, gathering not just depth but the seeds of what follows, the slow infusion of life into the scoured basin, where endings in splash prelude the gentle stirrings of growth along the softened shores, inviting you, in the quiet cradle of this telling, to sense that same subtle greening within, the way a single deep breath after exertion brings a flush of renewal to the limbs, reassuring in its promise that what tumbles and churns ultimately settles into fertile repose, a testament to the earth's unyielding generosity, where every cascades close becomes a beginning veiled in mist and murmur. In the heart of this transformation lies the plunge pool itself, the profound basin hewn by the fall's persistent kiss, a sanctuary of swirling clarity where the descended waters eddy and still, their kinetic fervor yielding to a glassy calm that mirrors the sky's vast indifference above. Imagine it forming over epochs, the initial scour of turbulent jets excavating softer substrates, schists or limestones dissolving under the barrage, while harder caps resist, undercutting until the cavity yawns wide, often 20 to 50 meters or more across and deep, a natural chalice brimming with secrets. Reassuringly, this is no barren void but a womb of abundance, the pool's depth stratified into layers, the sunlit surface alive with darting minnows and iridescent bubbles rising like forgotten wishes. The midwaters a realm of suspended silt where algae blooms in verdant haze, and the anoxic bottom a museum of leaf litter and fallen branches, decomposing into the rich detritus that fuels the chain. Everyday analogies whisper familiarity here, the way a rain-filled pothole in a driveway becomes a temporary pond for wriggling tadpoles, or the settling swirl in a stirred cup of tea revealing patterns in the lees, each evoking how these pools, too, distill the river's wild passage into pockets of intimate life, where the fool's roar fades to a muffled undertone, allowing the subtle clicks of crayfish and the sigh of rising gases to compose a quieter score. Pause with that stillness now, if it draws you, eyes half closed against the evening's soft dimming, breathing in the imagined cool of pooled water lapping at pebble edges, out with the warmth of knowing that such depths cradle not endings but emergencies, the oxygen churned from the surface diffusing downward like a gentle benediction, sustaining trout that glide in silver schools, their flanks flashing like coins tossed into a wishing well. Episodically, these vignettes of vitality interconnect, the pool's aeration, up to 10 times the river's norm, thanks to the white water's intimate with air, invites macroinvertebrates, those armored larvae of mayflies and stoneflies clinging to submerged logs, their gill-fringed bodies filtering the flow, in turn pray for the dippers that bob along the brink, dipping beaks to snatch a meal mid-dive. Subtle irony graces this renewal, the very force that carves the hollow, potentially scouring life away and floods fury, instead amplifies biodiversity, the basin's undercut ledges sheltering spawning gravels where salmon excavate reds in autumn's hush, their upstream odyssey rewarded in this watery haven, a cycle as empowering as the personal returns to a favorite thinking spot, where accumulated thoughts settle into clearer resolve. From the pool's embrace, the waters part once more, spilling over a lip of smooth cobbles into the tail race below, where the current, tempered by the plunge's dissipation, meanders through braided channels that fan across a gravel bar, depositing sediments in lazy arcs, like the way flour sifts through a sieve in even layers, building a soft bed for future loaves. This deposition, a counterpoint to the upstream erosion, enriches the riparian zone, the river's edge transforming into a mosaic of wet meadows where willows root in the moist alluvium, their flexible stems bowing to floods without breaking, a resilience mirrored in the human habit of leaning into life's inevitable flows, emerging not uprooted but deepened. Vividly, sense the tactile give of that soil underfoot, cool and loamy, threaded with the tendrils of forget-me-nots and marsh marigolds that bloom in spring's first thaw, their petals unfurling like flags of quiet triumph, drawing bees whose hum blends with the distant vale's hush. Rhetorically, what shared wonder lies in this alchemy? The fall's abrasive gift of pulverized rock, quartz sands and clay fines, now fertilizer for the green fringe, where sedges trap further silt, stabilizing banks against the current's tug, fostering thickets that shelter otters in their playful slides and kingfishers in earthen burrows. Interconnected explanations ripple outward, the plunge's nutrient flush, laced with dissolved ions from rock-water diluents, calcium for shell building, phosphorus from weathered apatite, pulses downstream in seasonal surges, greening algal mats that oxygenate the flow for downstream fisheries, a lifeline extending kilometers beyond the cascade. In tropical realms, like the mist-shrouded flanks of Angel Falls in Venezuela's Tepuis, this infusion sustains cloud forests where orchids dangle from branches heavy with epiphytes, their roots sipping aerial droplets as if the fall itself rains upward, a reversal as poetic as the evaporation that will one day lift these waters back to the heavens. Everyday examples ground the ore. Picture the puddle at your doorstep after a storm, sprouting tiny weeds where none grew before, or the compost heap's slow magic, turning scraps into soil that yields summer's harvest, each a micro-echo of the waterfall's legacy, where destruction's edge blurs into creation's bloom, reassuring us that even the most forceful passages leave trails of tenderness. Building rhythm with repetitive reinforcement of renewal's reach, the pool cradles, the bar builds, the meadow binds, each stage a verse in the post-plunge psalm, where biodiversity surges, species richness doubling or tripling in key taxa like invertebrates and fish in the fall's halo compared to straight-run rivers, as studies gently note in their unobtrusive tallies. Shorter bursts for reflection, undercut caves host Cave Weta in New Zealand's falls, their stridulations a nocturnal chorus, plunge pools in Japan's Yoshino River harbor endangered Ito fish, their slow glides an emblem of adapted poise, and in Africa's Victoria, hippos wallow in the shallows, their communal baths aerating the depths for cichlids below. Gently philosophical, this outpouring affirms the serenity and succession, the pioneer lichens colonizing damp ledges, giving way to mosses that cushion spores for ferns, which in turn ladder up to shrubs and trees, a procession as patient as the fall's own retreat, echoing those quiet rebuilds in your life after a cascade of change, where the splash clears space for roots to delve anew. Let us trace these stirrings further into the veil of mist, that ethereal exhale from the descent, a persistent fog that cloaks the gorge in perpetual dawn, its fine particles, droplets no larger than a breath's whisper, drifting on updrafts to mantle the walls in a nutrient mist, where the air itself becomes elixir. In the Hawaiian falls like a cocker, This aerial irrigation sustains anthuriums and birds' nest ferns, their fronds arching like welcoming hands, trapping pollen and spores in a verdant web that cascades secondary drips, amplifying the fall's reach tenfold. Feel the imagined caress of it now, a cool veil settling on lashes or the back of your neck, carrying the faint, clean scent of petrichor amplified, evoking those after-rain walks where the world gleams afresh, every leaf a lens for refracted light. Subtle guided affirmation, with each imagined bead tracing your skin. Release a thread of held fatigue, letting it evaporate into the mist's embrace, emerging lighter, attuned to the interconnected hush where water's gift touches without touch. As denser ecologies unfold, the hyporeal zone beneath the gravel bar, where subsurface flows mingle oxygenated surface with mineral groundwater, birthing a hidden aquifer teeming with nematodes and bacteria, the unsung engineers breaking down organics into bioavailable ions, allow a pause for their settling, the narrative unfolding like the slow fill of a settling tank, in and out. The science a soft scaffold for wonder. Breathe into that hidden vitality now, sensing the unseen web beneath. Vignettes stand alone yet linked, in the Amazon's rain-curtained agua section you, mist forests harbor howler monkeys whose calls pierce the vapor like contralto threads, their fruit diet seeded by the fall's flushed understory, or in Norway's Varsedilla ringsfossen, the spray's chill tempers summer heats, allowing Arctic alpine plants to hug the cliffs in defiant bloom, a bridge between biomes forged in aqueous haze. Observational lightness, even as the fall dominates the senses, its aftermath whispers of humility, the mighty roar yielding to the ferns unfurl, reminding us that grandure's true measure lies in the lives it quietly lifts. Repetition weaves the theme, infusion follows impact, growth graces the gouge, serenity succeeds the splash, each a ripple in the watershed's web, where the fall's bounty extends to human kin, too, the pool's clear waters quenching villages downstream, the fertile bars yielding rice paddies in terraced barley, where Subok farmers honor the flow with rituals as rhythmic as the drop itself. Uplifting, this shared sustenance, the water not hoarding its vitality but dispersing it like arms, empowering communities in the subtle ways of abundance, much as a heartfelt conversation scatters seeds of insight across a circle of friends. And in karst cascades like those of Slovenia's Periknik, where the flow sheets over marble lips, the dissolution's legacy, caves and sinkholes honeycombed below, channels groundwater to emerge as thermal springs, healing waters warmed by Earth's core, a full circle echo of subterranean origins, where the surface's splendor draws from depths unseen. Philosophically inclined, These echoes in pool and mist invite contemplation of resilience's quiet architecture, the way the fall's fervor forges not fragility but fortitude, ecosystems rebounding from droughts or deluges with a tenacity as serene as the moon's pull on tides, inviting you to draw that same fortitude into your own rhythms of recovery. Have you ever lingered by a stream's eddy after rain, watching leaves spiral into stillness, only to witness a dragonfly alight on the edge, poised for flight? Such moments mirror the post-plunge poise, the basin's calm a canvas for possibility, fostering not just flora's creep, but fauna's flourish, bats sipping from overhangs at dusk, their echolocative sweeps mapping the vapor's folds, or amphibians chorusing from saturated hollows, their calls a nocturne of hope. Everyday relatability blooms, the bird bath in your yard, refilled by hose or shower runoff, drawing finches that bathe and depart, leaving ripples that settle into peace, a domestic prelude to the grander renewals, where waters wake always whispers of welcome. As these fertile vales extend, the river, now laden with the fall's dissolved largesse, carries forward not just volume but vitality, meandering through floodplains where seasonal overflows paint the land in silty gold, building deltas that advance like slow-motion tides, each layer a chronicle of cascades upstream. In the Nile's embrace of Blue Nile Falls, this transport yields the Jezera's cotton fields, ancient as pharaohs, where the annual inundation, echo of the Plunge's pulse, renews the black soil's crumb, a legacy as enduring as the monuments it cradles. Sensory prompts evoke the scene, the rich, loamy perfume rising from tilled earth after irrigation, the cool trickle of a furrow's edge under fingers, the distant rumble a lullaby to laborer's siesta, blending human endeavor with nature's unhurried gift. Gently, a rhetorical nudge, in these downstream drifts, do we not glimpse the fall's far-reaching hand, its splash seeding not just local green but continental breadbaskets, affirming that one moment's motion touches horizons unforeseen? Shorter fact clusters vary the flow. Mist can extend a fall's influence to a hectare's canopy, boosting productivity by up to 20% in mist-dependent realms. Plunge pools store carbon in sediments, sequestering thousands of tons yearly. Tailrace gravels host microbial mats that fix nitrogen, enriching the food web from base to apex. Reassuring in their modesty, these mechanics underscore the fall's role as planetary nurturer, the descent's drama dissolving into diffused benevolence, much like the way a single kind word echoes through a day, softening edges long after spoken. Transitioning through these layers, the narrative of renewal builds, from basin's brood to bar's braid, mist's mantle to meadow's mat, each interconnected, the fall not an isolated aria but a prelude to the symphony's broader score. where life's tendrils weave through the watered warp. Yet even as this infusion settles into soil and stream, stirring the roots of ancient groves and the fins of migratory kin, the water's story deepens with the voices that have long echoed from these softened shores, the human harmonies attuned to the Cascades' cadence, where myths and migrations entwine with the eternal ebb, drawing you gently into a tapestry of shared wonder, where the fall's murmur becomes a bridge between the tangible rush and the intangible dreams of those who have stood in its spray, feeling, perhaps as you do now in this twilight hush, the reassuring pull of something timeless, a current that carries not just water but the quiet wisdom of generations, inviting reflection on how these liquid thresholds have shaped not just landscapes but the very contours of our collective spirit, much like the stories we tell ourselves at day's end to weave meaning from the day's fleeting flows. In the cradle of human memory, waterfalls emerge not merely as geological verses but as sacred choruses, woven into the myths that peoples have sung to explain the world's wild beauty, their roars interpreted as the voices of spirits or the sighs of gods, guardians of thresholds where the ordinary meets the divine. Consider the Norse sagas, where the thunderous Gullfoss in Iceland, golden falls, pouring over basalt steps into a canyon's maw, whispers echoes of the god Odin, whose legend shapes its horseshoe form to Sleipnir, his eight-legged steed, fording realms between Asgard and Midgard, the spray a veil between worlds, much as the mist you might envision now softens the edges of your thoughts, blurring the line between wakefulness and the gentle drift toward sleep. Reassuring in their antiquity, these tales portray the fall not as peril but as portal, a place of initiation where heroes tested their mettle, emerging baptized in the cool rush, their spirits fortified, like the quiet resolve you gather in moments of stillness, drawing strength from the unseen currents beneath daily tides. Pause here, if the image lingers, and let your breath sink with that imagined ford, in through the veil's chill, out with the warmth of passage granted, feeling the subtle empowerment in surrendering to the flow's ancient invitation. And stand-alone vignette yet linked in the universal reverence for water's descent as a symbol of purification and power. In the lore of Hawaii's Wailua Falls on Kauai, the cascading twin streams, sacred to the elite chiefs, embody Moa dragons like Loko Waka, who guards the pools below, her scales shimmering in the rainbows that arc through the spray, a guardian spirit that demands respect from those who approach, mirroring the way indigenous wisdom teaches harmony with the land, where the fall's rhythm dictates fishing seasons or planting rites, a cyclical attunement as natural as the rise and fall of your chest in repose. Subtle irony touches the narrative. What modern eyes might see as mere spectacle, these ancestors beheld as living kin, the rawer counsel against hubris, reminding that even the mightiest drop bows to the basin's embrace, much like the evening's grandest worries dissolving into night's accommodating hush. Vividly, sense the cultural hush around such sites, the faint scent of plumeria offerings laid at the brink, the distant chant of Oli prayers rising like mist, evoking those personal rituals you hold, perhaps a candle lit or a journal page turned, each a small homage to the flows that shape the soul. Transitioning through these storied vales, let us wander to the Americas, where the Iguazu Falls, over 200 chutes thundering across the Argentina-Brazil border, resonate with the Guarani myth of Naipe and Tarouba, lovers torn asunder by the gods and transformed into the central cataract, their eternal reunion a frothy embrace in Devil's Throat, where the plunge's deepest roar marks the spot of divine remorse. This vignette, rich with themes of separation and sacred union, underscores the fall's role as emotional mirror. The mist tears a communal catharsis for pilgrims who journey to the catwalks suspended amid the spray, their whispers lost in the din yet heard in the heart's quiet echo. Everyday relatability draws it close. Think of the backyard fountain's trickle, a modern echo of those ancient sighs, where you pause to watch leaves spiral downward, pondering your own tales of longing and return, the water's persistence a gentle affirmation that what parts will one day pool in harmony. Rhetorically, does it not stir a serene insight? This way myths humanize the elemental, turning the Cascades' indifference into a narrative of empathy, where the gods themselves learn the grace of letting flow. Building rhythm with repetitive echoes of reverence, falls as fords, falls as guardians, falls as lovers' reunions, each motif reinforcing the interconnected wonder, where the physical drop inspires the spiritual leap, fostering not fear but a profound, uplifting kinship with the wild. In Japan's Nochi Falls, tallest single drop in the archipelago, the Shinto kami of the Kumano-Kodo pilgrimage trails manifest in the Cascades' ceaseless veil, a site of misogi purification where devotees stand beneath the icy torrent, shedding impurities like autumn leaves in a stream, emerging renewed, their bodies tingling with the chill that aligns, perhaps, with the cool sheets of your bed tonight, wrapping you in similar ablution. Gently clarified, misogi is simply the ritual immersion in flowing water, a practice as accessible as a mindful shower at dawn, rinsing not just skin but the subtle residues of yesterday's burdens, empowering the dawn of fresh intent. Subtle guided pause, envision that stand now, the water sheeting over shoulders like 1,000 soft fingers, in, holding the cleanse, out, releasing what no longer serves, the fall's voice a soothing chorus to your private right. As these mythic harmonies unfold, they blend seamlessly into historical migrations, where waterfalls marked waypoints on journeys of exploration and exile. Their presence is etched into maps and memories as beacons of sustenance or peril. The Niagara Falls, that colossal curtain straddling Ontario and New York, drew indigenous Haudenosaunee peoples for millennia as a fishing nexus where weirs of woven reeds channeled salmon leaps, the thunder a seasonal herald of abundance, yet later became the site of daredevils like Annie Edson Taylor in 1901, who barreled the drop in an oak keg to claim fame and fortune, her survival a testament to human audacity tempered by the river's forgiving depth. Vignettes like these interconnect the ancient and the audacious, the fall's consistent flow, about 2,400 cubic meters per second, providing not just myth but meal, the pools below teeming with eels and sturgeon that sustained villages through winters, a ripple effect as reassuring as the community potlucks you might recall, where shared bounty binds kin across time. Light observational touch, even in their spectacle, falls humble the bold, Taylor's triumph followed by quieter souls who simply sat in the spray's hush, listening for the river's counsel, much like the way a walk by a local brook quiets the mind's clamor. Philosophically attuned, these human entwinings reveal waterfalls as teachers of coexistence, their eternal motion a model for dwelling in flux, settling at the base yet ever departing, mirroring the migrations that brought Polynesians to Pacific Isles via wayfinding attuned to freshwater signs, or African diaspora songs that likened the Congo's Stanley Falls to ancestral calls homeward. In Ethiopia's Blue Nile Falls, now 'tis Abbey or Smoking Waters, Amharic epics sing of the river's leap as a divine gift, a barrier breached by warriors in pirogues, yet today a hydropower heart-pumping light to highlands, the turbines hum a modern hymn to the Cascades' untamed vigor. Sensory details evoke the scene, the acrid tang of turbine oil mingling with petrichor, the rhythmic whoosh of diverted flow underscoring the remnant veil's sigh, inviting you to ponder those hybrid harmonies in your life, traditions whisper amid progress's pulse, each enhancing the other's depth. Repetition seals the insight, falls sustain, falls challenge, falls illuminate, threads in the human story where the natural world's voice speaks through our own. Let us linger on these modern lenses, where science and stewardship converge at the brink, contemporary guardians monitoring the fall's health with the vigilance of old shamans reading clouds. At Yosemite's Yosemite Falls, the North America's tallest at 740 meters, ranges track seasonal dry-ups, now more frequent with warming climes, using gauges that measure discharge in cubic feet per second, gently clarified as the volume passing a point each instant, a metric as straightforward as timing a sink's fill. These episodic efforts interconnect with cultural care, Tribes like the Ahuanchi collaborate on restoration, replanting willows along eroding banks to stabilize the flow, their hands echoing ancestors' weaves, a partnership as empowering as community gardens you might tend, where effort blooms into shared harvest. Everyday examples abound. The backyard rain barrels level, charting storms for garden good, or the app that tracks local stream health, small acts scaling to the grand, where data whispers warnings of overuse, like the damming of Brazil's Itaipu that tamed nearby falls, yet sparked global dialogues on balance. Shorter bursts vary the rhythm. Seismic sensors at Iceland's Dynjandi detect micro-tremors from glacial melt feeding the tears. Drone surveys at Venezuela's Angel Falls map mist corridors for biodiversity corridors, and isotopic tracers in Scottish Highland burns reveal pollution paths, guiding cleanups that revive salmon leaps. Reassuringly, this vigilance yields victories, the removal of small weirs restoring natural plunges, fish populations rebounding like spring's first chorus, a subtle irony in how technology amplifies the fall's voice, turning raw to readable ripple. Gently philosophical, such coexistence affirms our place in the cascade, not conquerors but companions, learning from the water's way to adapt without arrogance, much as you adapt night's quiet, finding peace in the flow's unforced guidance. Interwoven now with these stewardship tales come vignettes of artistic homage, where painters and poets have sought the fall's muse, capturing their essence in strokes and stanzas that bridge epochs. Thomas Cole's Hudson River School canvases of Catskill Falls frame the drop as sublime wilderness, a romantic emblem of nature's awe-inspiring might, the mist's glow evoking divine light, while Matsuo Basho's haiku on Japan's Minu Falls distills the crimson maple's fall into a single crimson leaf adrift in the vale, a moment of mono no aware, the gentle pathos of transience, relatable to the fleeting beauty of a sunset glimpsed from your window, its colors lingering in memory long after dusk. Rhetorical musing, in these creations, do we not glimpse the fall's gift of inspiration, its motion stirring the still soul to expression, fostering that quiet insight where art and element entwine like vines on a spray-kissed cliff? As global horizons broaden, consider the migrations of meaning. Chinese ink scrolls of Wangoshu Falls depict the yellow fruit tree cascade as a dragon uncoiling from limestone, a symbol of imperial fortune, while Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of Australia's Wallamumbi Falls speak of the rainbow serpent shaping gorges in creative slumber, its body the river's curve. These standalone myths link in the theme of origination, the fall as Earth's storyteller, its plunge birthing not just pools but cosmogonies, empowering listeners across continents to see their own journeys reflected in the drop, the bold leap from comfort's edge, the misty veil of uncertainty yielding to clarity below. Sensory immersion deepens, the faint vibration underfoot at a crowded viewpoint, the collective sigh rippling through tourists like echoes in a cavern, evoking those shared gatherings where stories flow as freely as the water, binding strangers in wonder's web. Repetition reinforces the harmony, myths as maps, histories as hymns, stewardships as symphonies, each human layer of verse responding to the fall's eternal refrain, uplifting the notion that we are not apart from but a part of this aqueous aria, our voices adding timbre to the timeless. In Peru's Waterfalls, rediscovered in 2002 after centuries of local taboo, believed cursed by Inca spirits, the unveiling sparked ecotourism that funds Quechua education, a modern migration from secrecy to sharing, where guides recount legends in Quechua whispers, the spray carrying words like seeds on the wind. Everyday Thai, the family photo album's faded snapshots of a vacation cascade, memories misted yet vivid, reminding how falls etch into personal lore, their image a touchstone for tales retold around evening fires. Philosophically, these voices from the brink invite a serene contemplation of humility's horizon, the fool's scale dwarfing yet dignifying the human gaze, teaching that true power lies in presence, not possession, as in the Zen koans of Kyoto's Mino Falls, where the monk ponders the water's path. Does it seek the sea, or simply be the falling? Such questions, subtle and engaging, mirror your own evening musings, the day's events cascading into perspective, emerging with quiet wisdom. Guided affirmation, with each imagined step closer to the brink, affirm your place in the flow, worthy witness to the wonder, your heart's rhythm syncing with the river's, in, holding the horizon's promise, out, releasing into the vast, accommodating now. Yet as these tales from ancient lips and modern gauges settle like silt in a tranquil bend, weaving the human thread ever tighter into the waterfall's warp, we approach the broader vista where these cascades reveal not just local lore but the planetary poem they compose, their collective voices a lullaby guiding us toward the dreaming depths of interconnected repose, where the eternal ebb meets the soul's quiet shore. Yet as these tales from ancient lips and modern gauges settle like silt in a tranquil bend, weaving the human thread ever tighter into the waterfall's warp, we approach the broader vista where these cascades reveal not just local lore but the planetary poem they compose, their collective voices a lullaby guiding us toward the dreaming depths of interconnected repose, where the eternal ebb meets the soul's quiet shore, inviting you, in this final unfolding, to let your awareness expand like mist rising from a quiet pool, encompassing not the single veil, but the vast hydrology that binds ocean to cloud, continent to current, in a seamless cycle of giving and grace, reassuring in its vastness, a reminder that every drop you hear in the hush of night echoes the earth's own breath, nurturing not just the green world but the quiet chambers of your spirit, where wonder finds its deepest root. In this grander gaze, waterfalls emerge as the earth's liquid scribes, etching the story of planetary vitality across scales that dwarf our daily drifts, their descents integral to the great water wheel that turns the atmosphere's wheel, evaporating from sun-warmed seas to condense in mountain fastnesses, precipitating as rivers that seek the brink once more, a loop as eternal and empowering as the inhale and exhale that sustains your form even now. Consider the global tally, gently clarified as the sum of myriad murmurs, over 10,000 named falls worldwide, from the featherlight rills of the Scottish Highlands to the colossal curtains of Patagonia, yet countless more whisper unseen in remote tempestuous or polar fjords, each contributing to the freshwater flux that quenches 80% of the world's population downstream. Reassuringly, this is no isolated artistry but a networked symphony, where the Plunge's aeration oxygenates rivers that feed wetlands, those vast kidneys filtering toxins from the land's runoff, in turn buffering coasts against storm surges with mangrove mazes that drink the sea's salt and exhale calm. Picture it rippling outward, a cascade in the Rockies, like the ethereal bridal veil in Yosemite, flushes minerals that travel via the Merced to the Pacific, nourishing plankton blooms that form the base of oceanic food chains, sequestering carbon in their microscopic shells, a chain as interconnected as the thoughts that link one memory to another in your evening reverie, each fall a verse in the poem of atmospheric balance. Pause with that expanse now, if it calls softly, eyes drifting shut as you envision the blue marble from afar, its white veins of vapor tracing arcs from equator to pole, the fall's voices humming in the chorus of evaporation, about 500,000 cubic kilometers of water lifted yearly by the sun's patient gaze, only to return in rains that swell the headwaters, birthing new veils in a rhythm as uplifting as the dawn's first light filtering through leaves. Episodically, these vignettes of cycle interconnect. In the Amazon basin, where a Gua section use thunder feeds the world's largest river, the Plunge's mist cools the understory, sustaining a canopy that pumps up to 30% of the region's precipitation back skyward, a self-sustaining breath that cools the planet by a degree or more, countering the greenhouse's subtle fever, or in the Himalayas, where the Ganges falls like those at Rishikesh cascade from glacial melt, their chill waters irrigating rice terraces that feed billions, yet also eroding slopes that birth landslides, a gentle philosophical nudge towards stewardship's call, where human harmony with the flow preserves the vein's vitality. Subtle irony whispers here, The very drops that sculpt fragility also forge resilience. The rivers cut deepening canyons that harbor unique endemics, like the blind cavefish in Mexican cenote falls, adapted to eternal dusk, echoing those inner adaptations you make, turning shadows of change into sanctuaries of strength. From this hydrological heart, the fool's role in life's grand cradle unfolds further, hotspots of speciation where isolation by gorge or spray fosters evolutionary whispers. The plunge pool's unique pressures, turbulent niches for extremophiles that thrive in oxygen-spiked chills, seeding diversity that ripples to coral reefs via migratory birds carrying seeds in downy coats. In New Zealand's Milford Sound, fjord falls like those of Bowen plummet from sheer granite, their spray veiling ancient podocarps that harbor tuatara, living fossils whose lineages trace to dinosaurs, a testament to the fool's preservative poise, holding time in misty folds much as cherished recollections hold the essence of lost seasons in your heart. Everyday analogies ground the ore, the drip from your showerhead pooling in the basin, fostering a stray mushroom's spore in the grout, a microcosm of how these cascades amplify biodiversity, with studies noting significantly higher, up to several times more species in fall-adjacent habitats, from iridescent damselflies skimming the froth to orchids clinging to slick ledges, their blooms a defiant poetry against gravity's pull. Rhetorically, what quiet insight blooms in this, the way a single descent can cradle multiplicity, affirming that in our own lives, moments of letting go, a job's end, a relation's shift, often pool into richer tapestries, empowering the unexpected flourish. Building rhythm with repetitive reinforcement of the cycle's cradle, falls evaporate and elevate, falls aerate and activate, falls isolate and innovate, each facet a stanza in the earth's ode to interdependence, where the water's path from cloud to cascade to sea mirrors the soul's journey from aspiration to release to return, serene in its inevitability. Shorter bursts illuminate the scale. The Niagara alone generates enough hydropower for millions. Its turbines a modern echo of the fall's kinetic gift. Patagonia's Chorro del Salto cascades into Andean lakes that regulate southern currents, influencing global weather like a butterfly's wing, and in Africa's Livingstone Falls, the Congo's rapids chain drives fisheries yielding protein for 10 million, a lifeline as vital as the evening meal that grounds your day. Gently philosophical, this planetary provisioning evokes a profound reassurance. The fall's not capricious but custodial. There flows the arteries of a living Gaia, where every ripple underscores our embedded grace, inviting you to feel, in the hush of this telling, the subtle pulse of belonging, as if your veins carried the same ancient current. Yet let us turn, with deliberate tenderness, to to the horizon's subtle shifts, where the warming weave of climate's change casts lengthening shadows on these liquid luminaries, their futures pulsing with both peril and possibility, a call to collective mindfulness as gentle as the mist's caress. In a world where glaciers recede like forgotten melodies, falls fed by ice, such as those in Alaska's Glacier Bay, diminish to silver threads, their volumes halved in decades, reducing downstream flows that once swelled monsoons, now risking droughts in dependent deltas like Bangladesh's Sundarbans, where tigers prowl shrinking mangroves. Reassuringly, this is not a dirge but a dialogue, where conservation's hand, reforesting headwaters to slow runoff, or restoring wetlands to buffer extremes, can temper the tide, as seen in Costa Rica's Monteverde cloud forest, where protected cascades sustain biodiversity corridors amid shifting rains, a model of resilience as empowering as the small choices you make, perhaps turning off a tap or planting a rain garden, each a droplet in the larger mend. Vividly, imagine the altered hush, a fall's roar softening to sigh, yet in its wake, solar-powered monitors whispering data to satellites, guiding irrigators to equitable shares, the technology a bridge from ancient attunement to enlightened adaptation. Interconnected explanations ripple through these futures, rising seas back up estuarine falls like those in Scotland's River Findhorn, salinizing soils that once greened with heather, yet innovative barriers, living oyster reefs mimicking natural weirs, restore the balance, fostering hybrid habitats where salt-tolerant rushes bloom alongside freshwater ferns, an evolutionary pivot as poetic as the heron's stance in tidal shallows. Everyday echoes make it intimate, the way a neighborhood stream, once perennial, now trickles in summer's heat, prompting community cleanups that revive its song, much like tending a houseplant through dry spells, nurturing not just leaf but lesson in care's quiet power. Pause for reflection here, breathing with the imagined shift, in through the warming air, holding the uncertainty's mist, out with the resolve's cool stream, affirming that awareness is the first cascade, washing away inertia to reveal paths of preservation. Subtle guided affirmation, with each exhale, envision your actions joining the global flow, a single mindful step amplifying the fall's enduring voice, empowering the whole with unassuming grace. As denser forecasts settle, the models projecting notable variance in fall regimes by mid-century, around 20% in some models, with polar plunges surging from melt while tropical veils waning from erratic rains, allow the narrative's pace to cradle them, unfolding not in alarm but in awe at adaptation's artistry, the Earth's response as fluid as the water itself. Pause here, breathing the flux's fluid grace, in. Holding adaptation's promise, out. letting serenity flow through the foreseen shifts. Vignettes stand alone yet linked. In Japan's Horsetail Flows, white silk, snow-packed declines thread thinner veils, yet engineered micro-hydro arrays harvest the remnant flow for clean energy, lighting villages with the Cascades' own spark, or in Iceland's Waterfalls, basaltic columns framing the drop. Geothermal pairings with the fall's chill create hybrid renewables, a fusion as harmonious as winter's frost yielding spring's thaw. Observational lightness, even in flux, falls teach impermanence's gift, their forms ever shifting like sand mandalas washed clean, inviting us to embrace change not as loss but as liberation, much as the year's turning invites winter's rest before summer's bloom. Repetition weaves the philosophical thread, futures foretell flux, yet foster fortitude. Cascades may alter, but their essence endures. In every shift, serenity abides. Uplifting, this vision of vigilant vitality, where international pacts like the Ramsar Convention safeguard wetland-fed falls, ensuring the Congo Basin's chain remains a biodiversity bastion, tigers and okapis thriving in mist-veiled refuges, a global kinship as profound as the family stories passed around your table, each voice adding to the shared lore. And herein lies the deeper tie to personal serenity, the waterfall's eternal descent, a metaphor for life's inner currents, those moments when emotions crest and plunge, whether in joy's exuberant spill or sorrow's shadowed veil, teaching us to flow without fracture, to aerate the depths with breath's simple gift, emerging not diminished but distilled, crystalline in clarity. Have you felt it? In a quiet hour by a local rill, the water's insistence urging you to release a clung regret, watching it eddy away into the current's compassionate carry? Such immersions foster peaceful discovery, the fool's lesson that surrender is not defeat but the graceful gateway to renewal, empowering you to navigate your own cascades with the poise of pooled waters, still and strong. Let that personal echo resonate now, tracing back to the gathering flows we first imagined, those liquid veins swelling from distant rains, much as our spirits swell from unseen sources, the quiet inspirations, the subtle nurturings that propel us to our own brinks, where the leap, though daunting, reveals the basin's welcoming depth below. In this full circle, the waterfalls affirm the interconnected wonder, from subterranean stirrings reimagined as rivers rise, through forms and symphonies of motion, echoes of renewal and human harmonies, to this planetary poem, where every drop returns to the sea, evaporated once more to grace new heights. Reassuring, isn't it, how the earth's aqueous artistry cradles fragility in its fold, the softest force sculpting the hardest stone, mirroring the tender resilience within you, where vulnerabilities pool into vulnerability's quiet power, birthing not just survival but a serene sovereignty, as we've journeyed from fire's depths to water's embrace. Breathe with that synthesis, if you will, in through the nose, drawing the imagined scent of wet stone and wild bloom, holding at the crest of awareness, out through the mouth in a slow, veiling release, feeling the mist of it settle like a benediction, each cycle a subtle affirmation of your place in the grand, gentle flow. Shorter bursts feel the insights, falls regulate climate, falls cradle diversity, falls inspire adaptation, threads in the tapestry of terrestrial tenderness, where the water's way whispers to our wandering hearts, yield and be carried, descend and discover. Philosophically inclined, this close invites a final musing on the empowerment in embrace, the art of flowing with the fall, not against it, allowing inner tempests to thunder through without tethering the spirit, emerging aerated, alive with possibility, much as the river below the brink meanders onward, carving canyons of canyon beauty from persistent passage. And so, in this shared hush, the Waterfall Euro trademark whispers become yours, a silken current carrying you into restful dreams, where the planetary poem continues its verse, each breath a drop rejoining the cycle, serene and whole, the wonder not ending but enfolding you deeper into the Niagara TM's peaceful discovery, the eternal ebb now the lullaby of your own quiet shore.